Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things. So it's Thursday. Number 1, the impeachment investigation moving forward in Washington.
A new witness has emerged as impeachment hearings open to the public with testimony from 2 longtime diplomats.
Our lawmakers will hear privately from an aide who told the top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine that he overheard President Trump pushing to investigate Joe Biden. Number 2, a new legal setback for President Trump in the battle over his tax records.
An appeals court has ruled Congress can seek 8 years of the president's financial documents. The president had tried to block lawmakers from issuing a subpoena to his accounting firm. Trump's lawyers are vowing to take the case to the Supreme Court. On to number 3, the mayor of Venice, Italy, says the worst flooding in more than 50 years has Venice on its knees.
Water is flowing through the city's most famous church. Floodwaters have reached their 2nd highest level in recorded history and are blamed for at least 2 deaths.
One man swam across the city's famous St. Mark's Square. With about 85% of Venice now underwater, damage estimates are in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Back here at home, we head to Colorado for number 4. A grand jury says the deadly police shooting of a young black man was justified, and now that's sparking calls for a special prosecutor.
2 Colorado Springs officers shot 19-year-old Devon Bailey in the back in August. He and another man were being questioned about a robbery when Bailey ran. Investigators say he was shot after reaching for his waistband.
Officers later found he had a gun. Prosecutors say they support the grand jury process as well as the officers.
These are not decisions our officers want to make. It is a dangerous job. They're out there trying to protect themselves and the community, but it is decisions they are trained to make. It's a very unfortunate situation, but we respect their decision, and we respect the decision finding that the officers were justified in this case.
Bailey's attorney says the family is considering legal action. Colorado's governor and other elected officials have called for an independent investigation.
And finally, number 5, a surprise in the Carolinas.
3 cows that were believed to be washed out to sea during Hurricane Dorian have been found along the Outer Banks. They apparently wound up there after swimming 5 miles to escape the storm surge in September.
The cows are part of a herd that lived on one of the islands. Incredible. I didn't even know that cows could swim.
Yeah.
Cows sure came calling home.
They say it's time to move along.
I tried to think of a moo joke too, and I couldn't, and it seems like you couldn't either.
All right, everyone, good morning. It was a big day on Capitol Hill.
Yep.
And there are more days to come as well when it comes to those impeachment hearings. So let's get right to that big story, the impeachment battle on Capitol Hill and the first public testimony from key witnesses in the inquiry. The top U.S. diplomat in Ukraine, Bill Taylor, and senior State Department official George Kent.
Let's press pause and revisit some of the key moments from the hearing.
As a general principle, I do not believe the United States should ask other countries to engage in selective, politically associated investigations or prosecutions against opponents of those in power, because such selective actions undermine the rule of law, regardless of the country.
I wrote that withholding security assistance in exchange for help with a domestic political campaign in the United States would be crazy. I believed that then, and I believe it now. In the presence of my staff at a restaurant, Ambassador Sondland called President Trump and told him of his meetings in Kyiv. The member of my staff could hear President Trump on the phone asking Ambassador Sondland about the investigations. Ambassador Sondland told President Trump the Ukrainians were ready to move forward. Following the call with President Trump, the member of my staff asked Ambassador Sondland what President Trump thought about Ukraine. Ambassador Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden, which Giuliani was pressing for.
And I take it the import of that is he cares more about that than he does about Ukraine.
Yes, sir.
The call summary for which the Democrats want to impeach President Trump is dramatically different from their nefarious depiction of it. What it actually shows is a pleasant exchange between 2 leaders who discuss mutual cooperation over a range of issues.
And then what you have in front of you is an addendum that Mr. Sondland made to his testimony that we got a couple weeks ago. It says, declaration of Ambassador Gordon Sondland. Ambassador Taylor recalls that Mr. Morrison told Ambassador Taylor that I told Mr. Morrison that I conveyed this message to Mr. Yarmouk on September 1st, 2019 in connection with Vice President Pence's visit to Warsaw and a meeting with President Zelensky. We got 6 people having 4 conversations in one sentence, and you're their star witness. You're their first witness. You're the guy. You're the guy based on this, based on, I mean, I've seen church prayer chains that are easier to understand than this.
I don't consider myself a star witness for anything.
They do. You don't.
No, I don't.
Are either of you here today to assert there was an impeachable offense in that call?
Mr. Ratcliffe, I would just like to say that I'm not here to do anything having to do with to decide about impeachment. That is not what either of us are here to do. This is your job.
Just about an hour before the two of you sat down to testify today, the president tweeted multiple times about this hearing, and he put in all caps, "Never Trumpers." Mr. Kent, are you a never Trumper?
I am a career non-professional who serves whatever president is duly elected and carries out the foreign policies of that president in the United States, and I've done that for 27 years for 3 Republican presidents and 2 Democrat presidents.
Ambassador Taylor, are you a never Trumper?
No, sir.
Is attempted murder a crime?
Attempted murder is a crime.
Is attempted robbery a crime?
Neither of us is a lawyer, but
I think anybody in this room could answer that
I
question.
think that's right. I'll go out on a limb and say, yes, it is.
Now, there is one witness that they won't bring in front of us. They won't bring in front of the American people. That's the guy who started it all, the whistleblower.
Thank you. I say to my colleague, I'd be glad to have the person who started it all come in and testify. President Trump is welcome to take a seat right there.
And you heard it right there at the beginning. The big news from the hearing was when diplomat Bill Taylor revealed that a member of his staff overheard a phone call from President Trump in which the president allegedly asked about the investigations he demanded from Ukraine, including an investigation into the Bidens.
But the question this morning is whether this newly revealed phone call changes anything. ABC's Elizabeth Hur is in Washington with both sides of the argument and what happens next. Elizabeth, good morning.
Kenneth and Janae, good morning. Let's begin here with that newly revealed phone call. And it was Taylor, as you mentioned, who testified about this. He says it was in recent days he learned about this call allegedly involving the president. Now, according to him, that phone call happened on July 26th. That's just one day after President Trump, the controversial phone call between President Trump and the president of Ukraine. And Taylor says that it was his staffer who overheard Trump asking U.S. Ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, over the phone about, quote, investigations. Well, just yesterday, President Trump was asked about this, and he told reporters that he doesn't remember this conversation.
I know nothing about that. First time I've heard it. The one thing I've seen that Sondland said was that he did speak to me for a brief moment, and I said no quid pro quo under any circumstances, and that's true. The other, I'd never heard this.
Do you recall having a conversation with Sondland?
I don't recall. No, not at all. Not even a little bit.
Well, Taylor's staffer who allegedly heard this call has now been called to testify, but he will do so behind closed doors. That's according to ABC's Mary Bruce, who also says that, as you can imagine, lawmakers are going to have a lot of questions for Gordon Sondland. Now, he has already testified in private, but he never mentioned this conversation to lawmakers. He has already revised his testimony once, so will he revise it again? We could find out next week. That is because he is up to testify in a public hearing next Wednesday.
Yep.
Janae and Kenneth.
And Elizabeth, Republicans are focusing on the end result, that the White House, in the end, released the military aid to Ukraine. But Democrats say the aid only started to flow after Congress started asking, at one point they called it uncomfortable questions, and launched an investigation. And, you know, many people saying, look, an attempted robbery is still a robbery. Talk to us about this, Elizabeth.
Well, the timeline, according to Democrats, Chairman Adam Schiff, is this. They say that hold on the military aid was released less than 48 hours after the whistleblower complaint became known to Congress. Now, as for that other criticism from Republicans, that Kent and Taylor, well, they're relying solely on secondhand information. What Democrats say, well, it's not their doing. They say that the White House has blocked witnesses with firsthand knowledge from testifying, and that includes Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and former National Security Advisor John Bolton. And so what happens next? The public impeachment hearings pick up again tomorrow, and up next to testify is former ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who has claimed that she felt threatened by President Trump. Kenneth and Janae.
All right, Elizabeth Hur live for us from D.C. Thank you. And people from all over the country, even other parts of the world, converged on Capitol Hill for a chance to witness history.
As the nationally televised impeachment hearings got underway, the hallways were jammed with reporters and photographers, while a handful of protesters gathered outside.
The tension's running high.
Therapy dogs. Well, aren't they so cute?
They are adorable.
They were needed.
Brought in to help ease the stress of congressional staffers and others who work at the Hill.
And there was this stunning sight in red latex. A drag queen going through security ahead of the testimony, hired as a reporter to cover the story for a news app. Quite the scenes there on Capitol Hill, and just think it is a long way from being over.
Yep.
Millions of Americans are keeping a closer eye on the effort to impeach President Trump now that the hearings are in public view. 9
more witnesses are scheduled to go before the cameras from Friday through next week. The first day of testimony may have been less riveting than with many minds already made up, but there was mixed reaction across the country, ranging from eye-opening to uninterested.
I thought I had an opinion, an idea about the impeachment that it perhaps wasn't a great thing. Listening to the details from Ambassador Taylor is starting to change my mind a little bit with his details and such detailed notes.
Everyone needs to be held accountable at the same level, you know, a normal person or the president. So I think that should be our top priority right now.
I think we would rather come to Sam's and Walmart than watch the impeachment hearings. I think it is such a political exercise on both sides of the issue that impeachment is not really an important issue for me.
Did you watch it at all?
I did not. I was out hunting today. It's first day of deer season.
That's our question of the day. Did the first public hearing change your mind one way or the other about the impeachment probe? Tell us in the comments. Tweet us at ABC News Live. Stay with us with ABC News for continuing coverage of the impeachment hearings, and live coverage begins tomorrow starting at 9 a.m. here online and on TV.
Well, coming up, we can't wait to show you a very special dance class just for dads and their daughters.
But first, more chaos in Hong Kong. Our correspondent is on the ground. Stay with us.
We are back with another morning of chaos in Hong Kong. Police say protesters using bows and arrows shot officers, then dropped flower pots on police who responded.
Pro-democracy demonstrators also barricaded themselves inside a Chinese university, then used chainsaws to cut down trees to keep police away. ABC News foreign correspondent Ian Pannell joins us now from Hong Kong. Ian, good morning. Tell us about the scene where you are.
Yeah, hi Janae, hi Kenneth. Let me paint the scene because it is incredible. This is like a medieval siege. Think more Games of Thrones than the streets of Asia's financial hub. So at the moment you can see a group of protesters there on the front line. We just saw some riot police emerge and it created this huge stir amongst the crowd. Let's just spin round and just have a look at the main highway here. If we can just drop down, you can see thousands and thousands of bricks that have been put there. You can also see quite how many black-clad protesters there are here. They're all students at the main Polytechnic University. So they put the bricks on the road. They've also put cooking oil on the road, ready to set fire to it. They put these spikes as well. This is why I describe it like a medieval siege. We saw groups of archers wandering around yesterday with bows and arrows doing target practice at the Starbucks that used to be up on the campus there. They've been hunkered down, hundreds and hundreds of them, for the last 2 days, just bringing in supplies. We saw students pouring bottles of beer down the drain, filling it up with gasoline, ready to make Molotov cocktails. These bricks will also be used as missiles. We've got sticks here, flower pots. There were reports of javelins. They're hunkered down here. They're ready for a pitched battle. The question is, at what point do the police emerge? We saw them very briefly. There was a stir in the crowd. At some point, they're going to come back.
It feels like we've been covering this for quite some time because we have, Ian, as you know, and so remind the folks, these protests started with an extradition bill that has since been withdrawn. So what do these protesters want now, and what will it take to end this standoff?
Yeah, Kenneth, look, I think that is the right question. We should remind people it started off about a proposed extradition bill. That was to allow potential criminals here in Hong Kong to be sent over to China. Remember, Hong Kong is a semi-autonomous region of China. They talk about one country, two systems. That's what provoked it. But actually what led to it escalating was then the response of the authorities from the police. The police used violence towards the protesters. That angered an enormous number of people, and we saw huge numbers coming out on the street. So now they say they have 5 key demands, not one less, and they won't give up until they're met. And they revolve around a number of different things. But the key ones are police accountability. People are genuinely affronted at what they see as police violence, the use of tear gas, mass arrests. We've seen rubber bullets being fired. We've seen people being beaten on the streets, unarmed people, and that is what's fueled this. And the second most crucial thing is universal suffrage. So the way the system works here is people do get to vote, but the people who are in charge here in Hong Kong are chosen essentially by the Communist Party in China. And they say, understandably, that that's not fair. That isn't one country, two systems. And unless they get universal suffrage, something we're all familiar with, we've seen that fight amongst Britain and America over the decades, unless they get the similar kind of thing here, then they'll carry on. It's hard to imagine China giving way to that kind of thing. China's a one-party authoritarian communist state. Is not about to allow full democracy in one of its territories.
And Ian, before you go, you've been there reporting on the ground, and you just mentioned China. I'm curious, are you surprised that China hasn't swept in there with a more forceful hand at this point?
Yeah, Kenneth, I am. In fact, I'm going to ask the cameraman if he can just swing around a little bit. If you can pick up that white building over there in the distance between the trees. It's not very far off, but that is actually the barracks of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. China isn't just next door. China is actually here right now. In fact, we saw some of the guards coming out earlier and telling people not to photograph. China and Beijing have made it clear that if the Hong Kong authorities can't control the situation, then they will. They'll send people across, potentially paramilitary police. But that would really escalate things and really change things. As I started off by saying, this is Asia's main financial hub. Can you imagine foreign troops wandering into Wall Street or London, any of those kinds of areas? It's kind of unthinkable at the moment, but that risk is always there. But Beijing is now urging the police here to do more. In other words, to kind of spare no possible measure to try and bring an end to this. But I don't see that ending. People are hunkered down. And what you hear time and again from these young students, they are all young, they're teenagers or in their early 20s, is that if not now, never. In other words, this is their last stand. And this area in particular, I guarantee in the next coming hours, but perhaps even minutes, is going to see one of the largest pitched battles of this 6-month-old conflict.
Wow. And Ian, we see you've got a gas mask there, so you are ready, and you've done a fantastic job covering the story thus far, and we know that you will continue doing that. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. And some other stories we're watching this morning back here at home. Authorities in Houston say they've made a big drug bust.
They found 35 pounds of liquid cocaine and 24 shampoo bottles during a bag check at George Bush Intercontinental Airport. They say a man from Colombia was attempting to smuggle the drugs worth more than $400,000 into the U.S. The suspect was sent back to Colombia. The cocaine was turned over to police.
Crews are battling a brush fire just east of Los Angeles. Flames erupted in Hacienda Heights yesterday afternoon. The fire grew to more than 3 acres, though officials say no structures are threatened.
A former insurance executive has received the longest prison sentence so far, stemming from the college admissions bribery scandal.
Toby McFarland received 6 months behind bars for paying $450,000 to get his son and daughter into the University of Southern California. McFarland pleaded guilty to fraud and conspiracy in June. He was also fined $150,000.
Police are looking into drug overdoses as a possible cause for a series of deaths at the University of Southern California.
At least 9 students have died since August. 3 deaths were caused by suicide. Investigators are trying to determine if any of the other deaths are linked to tainted drugs. The most recent death was Monday. Some are calling for more mental health services.
In El Paso, Texas, the Walmart reopens today more than 3 months after a deadly mass shooting. 22 people died when a gunman who police say targeted Mexicans opened fire. The discount chain has hired off-duty officers to guard its El Paso stores. There was no guard on the day of the shooting. Some victims are suing the retailer over the issue.
Former President Jimmy Carter is in good spirits after brain surgery. Carter's pastor said he was up and walking. The 95-year-old was admitted to the hospital Monday to relieve bleeding near his brain. It was caused by at least 2 falls in recent weeks. Carter is the nation's longest living president. No word yet on when he might be released from the hospital, but glad to hear that he's up, walking around and doing well. Let's take a break and check our notifications. This is an adorable, special moment between dads and their daughters that's going viral.
Yep, the video shows fathers and their little girls at a ballet class in Philadelphia. It's been shared thousands of times and is picking up some celebrity comments. Kristen Bell wrote on Instagram, there are some amazing papas out there, amazing fathers. Jennifer Garner added, dads are the best, to Tuesday on a Monday. And you mentioned Ava DuVernay earlier.
She retweeted it. Yep, that's when I first saw it on Twitter, and I just loved it. She obviously loved it too.
I love that video so much. And next to the rebranding of the single life, more people are calling themselves self-partnered.
It started with Emma Watson in a British Vogue interview.
Yep, she says she just loves, she feels like it better describes her and what's going on with her now and dating and not dating.
Partner, isn't it? It's like an oxymoron. Tell us what you think about it in the comments or ABC News Live on Twitter.
Yeah, let us know.
Single, self-partnered, are you rebranding yourself if you are either, or what do you think about it?
Are you self-partnering yourself? Hey, next up, the man trying to break his own world record for flying in his own human flight suit because it's like World Record Day or something.
Yeah,
so people are going to be busy
them.
trying to break as many records as possible. That's still a very cool sight. I want to try it.
We're trying to see how many words we can say in a day. I think we're contenders,
we definitely,
right?
We say the most here at anyone at ABC News.
A Chicago area high school student had all the right answers on a pair of standardized tests.
Ved Patel notched perfect scores on both the ACT and the SAT. The first came when he was a sophomore. That's when he earned a 36 on the ACT.
Junior year, Patel took the SAT and only got a 1580. He took it again. It was perfect. In addition to studying a few hours each day, he said the trick is staying level-headed and calm during the exams. Good to know.
That's a good message for throughout life as well. Stay
Yeah.
calm. Hey, and it was truly a beautiful day in the neighborhood in Pittsburgh, of course.
Not only was yesterday World Kindness Day in Pittsburgh, it was also Cardigan Day. So who better than the widow of Mr. Rogers to spread a little kindness in the neighborhood?
Yep, 91-year-old Joanne Rogers welcomed the newest Pittsburghers into the world wearing one of his sweaters to a hospital where the nursery was transformed into Mr. Rogers' neighborhood and where the babies were wearing their own little cardigans.
So cute. You know, we talked about World Kindness Day yesterday. Did you see any good acts of kindness?
Plenty.
Yeah? Oh, we did. We've covered some on the story. Tell us if you saw any.
Yeah, let us know.
Coming up, we'll tell you what to watch out for on this Thursday.
Plus, an engagement proposal gone wrong, or is it? Stay with us. Here's what to watch out for today. President Trump heads to Louisiana to hold a rally for Republican candidate for Governor Eddie Rispone ahead of Saturday's runoff election there.
Meanwhile, Kentucky begins recanvass of election totals from last week's gubernatorial election as requested by incumbent Republican Governor Matt Bevin. The original results showed Bevin behind Democrat Andy Beshear by about 5,000 votes, but Bevin refused to concede, citing voting irregularities.
Teachers in Chicago are set to begin 2 days of voting on a contract deal that ended a strike that canceled 11 days of classes for more than 300,000 students.
And it's Guinness World Records Day, so you can expect to see a lot of attempts at new world records. Maybe try one out for yourself.
Okay, well, plus don't forget to tune into The Debrief for an update on all our top stories and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
And finally, this morning, a couple in Hawaii is now engaged after a pretty epic proposal. Lauren and Chris were surfing when he pulled out a ring box and popped the question. She said yes just before Chris dropped the ring in the water, but it was only a stand-in ring. The real one back on the beach.
Well done by him. I mean, that's pretty cool there.
Yeah.
Left that real ring on the beach, all engaged in Hawaii, surfs up.
Congratulations.
Fun times.
That's it from us today.
Have a great day. We will see you tomorrow on Friday.